This is a DrumWise Meets, and today I'm here with Romaine, who plays for the likes of Enrique Iglesias, Steve Morse, and he has played with Kansas and Nena.
How you doing?
What age did you get into drums, and what bands or artists inspired you when you first started playing?
I would have to credit my father, who is not a musician but very musical. Well, so was my mother, but he was really into big band music. So around the age of 4 or 5, I developed interest in it, and then the typical story. I wanted a drum set for Christmas, and my parents said, "Yeah, sure, but you have to take lessons." So I remember the first lesson I had with this guy, Carl Wolf, who ended up being a pretty famous drum teacher. I told him to not get too attached to me because come Christmas time, when I get my drum set, I'm out of here. And that was when I was 8, and I studied with him for 6 years. But early on, I was into Zeppelin and Hendrix and Allman Brothers and James Brown. But my father, being a huge big band aficionado, I got way into Buddy Rich and all the big band music, Count Basie and Duke Ellington and Stan Kenton, Woody Herman, and he would take me to see these shows, and that's kind of where it started.
Oh, good stuff. And what was your first drum set? You said about getting one for Christmas. What was that?
The first real one that was not a toy was a Slingerland, because Buddy Rich's drum kit, basically, the Marine Pearl. And I don't know where that is now.
That was going to be my next question. Do you still have it?
No, I do not. I'm not a hoarder. I mean, well, that's different when you have drums, right? It would actually be awesome if I still had it, but I just,
It's one of those things. We just get rid of stuff. We like to have a turnover of equipment, don't we?
Yeah.
And while we're talking about equipment, then, what's your current setup? I know that obviously there's not any gigs right now, but what's your current equipment of choice?
Well, a lot of it's based on the endorsements I have, but playing Gretsch drums and Sabian cymbals, Fader sticks, Evans drum heads, biodynamic mics and headphones, Ultimate ears. I could go on and on, but my drum kit's changing all the time. Oh, there it is. But that's let's see, what is that? I've got kit stored upstairs too. This is my house, but I've got a studio on the first floor. So that's a Broadcaster 14x22 bass drum that I used on a track I was recording yesterday, only because it fit in the track. And they're the Gretsch Brooklyn Toms, 10, 12, 14, 16. And that's a bird's eye maple snare drum. But I'm changing it all the time. I don't really have a I know early on in my career, guys would say, "Hey, what size kit do you play?" And that was always confusing to me because I play the kit that fits the music I'm about to work on. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. So
I love that as an answer. That's great because that's totally the thing, isn't it? Like loads of guys that I know have got like 2 bass drums or 3 bass drums for the same finish kit. So that you've got the different sizes for different situations. So
that's all fine. I don't judge any of that. It's just not the way I work, or actually, for that matter, guys that are really doing records and tours. They want to use what's musical and what's serving the music, and that is the business that I feel I'm in, is serving.
Excellent. Now, we talked earlier on about the music that inspired you to begin with. By the way, disclaimer here, I think this is a really tough question. I'd struggle to answer this, but here we are. So if you had to pick just one, who would be your all-time favorite drummer?
The short answer is Tony Williams,
Cool.
But that's a very hard. That would be at gunpoint,
Yeah.
Just
Anyway,
because he represents he's a big influence on me, but he's such a chameleon mu music wise. You know, his earlier work with Miles Davis and his heavier work with his own Lifetime band. So something about his energy, he represented like just the deep artistry of Miles Davis at its finest, and also had almost a punk rock energy to his rock drumming.
mm.
And I love all that stuff, so he would be the first one, I guess. But it's a long list, man.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I started it by saying, I'd struggle to answer it, but
Yeah,
I like to put the pressure on a little bit.
that's
um,
all good.
and this next one, a few people have found this one a tough one. In fact, even actually a tougher one. Some people. So, what's been the highlight of your career so far?
I've been blessed. It would be a toss up between two things. So one would be my first actual performance with Enrique Iglesias um, was that after 9/11 they did a tribute to the heroes performance, and that's the first time I ever played live with him. And that was like, I was living in Manhattan at the time, and I was there for the whole tragic event, but to see everyone come together for that, all the artists and all the talent, and everyone was in this tiny room, and the cause of it, and all that was raised. That would be one thing. Um, and then it started off my career with Enrique, which is still happening today. I know you asked for one, but the other one was um, Steve Morse, who also plays with Deep Purple, and in 1999, I think it was, they got asked to do. They were doing a concerto at Royal Albert Hall with the London Symphony Orchestra, and they invited the Steve Morse band to play 3 songs in the middle of their set with the London Symphony Orchestra. So that's the other one.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
it's kind of a longer story, but I won't go rambling this early in the interview.
And
Probably one of those two things.
no, that's cool. And yeah, I'm happy. 2 is fine. That's all good.
All right.
I'm not going to be that strict. Don't worry. um, and while we're talking about Steve Morse, this is probably a good chance to go down this route. So, before we started recording, I mentioned to you about my band, Purple Zeppelin.
Hmm.
Like a
Oh,
UK
that's the name of the band?
Purple Zeppelin. Yes, it's a
Oh,
tribute
cool.
to Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple.
Ah, okay.
Um,
Cool.
and
Cool.
obviously with the Steve Morse connection, let's
Yeah,
just go down that road for a sec. So talk to us
sure.
about what it's been like playing for Steve, and some of the things that you've done and so on.
I have to talk going back a little bit because we honestly don't play that much anymore. We never officially broke up. We played, I don't know, a couple months before the shutdown, before the pandemic in Nashville. But he's been very busy with his thing, and I'm musical director with Enrique, so that's been very busy. So it's been hard to find time. And Dave LaRue's very busy too, the bass player. So I'm not sure where to start with that, but I remember maybe one funny story. I've gotten to know Steve. He's become a very close friend, but Dave LaRue, the bass player, I was in a band with him, and he said, hey, Steve's looking for a drummer. This is going back to like 80, 89, and I was mostly playing with Blood, Sweat, and Tears then. But I don't know how familiar you are with any of Steve's music or the Dregs music, but Dave sent me 4 of the hardest songs to play, and I really busted my chops learning them. And I'm not necessarily coming from a double bass drum world so much. I am more so now due to my relationship with him. Anyway, Steve shows up. We played the 4 songs, and back then he was a man of few words. And he just goes, "Wow, you guys really sound great together." Because Dave and I have an unbelievable chemistry. I don't know where it comes from, but it's there and it's undeniable. And so Steve looked at my drums and said, "Oh, do you have cases for those?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "All right, cool. See you guys later." And he left. So I was getting ready to go to Australia with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, but I knew his tour was right on the back end of my Australian tour with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And this is before the internet and stuff, so I couldn't just send my bio around to get, like, I needed drums. It was a huge about equipment wise, music wise, practicing wise. And I remember being in Brisbane, up north of Brisbane on the Gold Coast, when I finally got the call that, yes, you in fact do have the gig with Steve Morse. And that's how the whole thing started. It was, and I guess he told me, yeah, I knew from the beginning you had the gig. I was like, oh, cool. Well, you just asked me if I had drum cases and walked out. So in my form of English, that doesn't mean, dude, you got the gig. So anyway, 7, 8 records later, you know,
Awesome.
that's a short version of that story. The other part of that story, going back to Royal Albert Hall in London with the London Symphony Orchestra, is a lot of Steve's music is really lends itself to an orchestration. But Steve, we always tour as a trio, and he's a pilot, so we'd be traveling around in his 6-seat plane in mostly the United States and Canada, and he would be adding strings with a pitch rider on his guitar. It was really pretty. It was beautiful. It didn't feel like it was lacking in any kind of way. But here we are rehearsing with a 85-piece orchestra behind us, and they really orchestrated something really beautiful with this one ballad where they didn't play anything for the first almost minute of the song, and then suddenly the orchestra started coming in, and I remember just the look on Steve's face, because these are his compositions, right? Anyway, it was amazing. And so we rehearsed for a couple of days with that music, and that's all we were supposed to do. So now it's showtime, and Deep Purple's playing their set, and we're going to go into the middle of their set. We play our songs, and then as I'm coming off, Ian Pace goes, Van, it'd be great if you jump up on stage at the end. We'll leave your drums up, and we'll play double drums on Smoke on the Water, you know. And here I was like, whoa, I didn't rehearse any of that. He goes, you'll be fine, you know. So, and it was so much fun. Of course, turns out I do know that song backwards. I didn't need to rehearse it at all. And maybe it took an older statesman like that to just, you know. And Ronnie James Dio was singing lead vocals with Ian Gillan. After the show, story's almost over, I got some friends that flew from Berlin. We were all back in the dressing room having a good time, and Steve comes up to me and says, hey, I'd like you to meet a couple friends real quick, you know. I was like, okay, excuse me, you guys. And I turn around, and it's Jimmy Page. And I'm like, oh my God, really nice to meet you. And then he goes, and here's George Harrison. They're both standing next to each other in the dressing room. So, yeah. And yeah, I actually started laughing. I was like, do you guys do this as like a tag team to just do exactly what you just did? Just
blow people's brains, yeah.
Yeah. In New Jersey, it's called a mind fuck. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that here.
Yeah. And actually, talking of Zeppelin, you talked about the Bonzo Bash as well that you played a few times.
Yeah.
Talk to us a bit about, you know, how that is to play.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know about the Bonzo Bash, it's put together by Brian Tishy, just unbelievable drummer on a lot of different ways, but he's also, he can do the John Bonham thing about as good as anyone I've ever seen. And so, yeah, he put this thing together on John Bonham's birthday, and it, I don't know how many years it's been going on. First, they did some dates, and I couldn't do all the dates because I was out of the country, but I flew in to do the New York-based things. So it would be one set band, and each drummer would just be communicating by email about, Brian would say, give me your top 3 songs that you'd like to do, you know. So I think the first one I did was The Crunge, because I always loved that song. It's like funky like James Brown, but it's 9/8 and kind of obscure, but a lot of fun to play. And I've done a bunch of songs. That was the first one. And so anyway, you pick your top three, and then Brian would organize it, and then you get together and rehearse. I actually didn't have time to rehearse, so the band would stay the same and the drummers rotate. But the list of drummers that have done it's just unbelievable. Chad Smith, Will Cahoon, Jojo Mayer, a good buddy of mine, Frank Ferrer, who plays with Guns N' Roses now. Zach Alfred, who actually is the drummer with Nena now, who I got involved with that. And the list goes on, including, older legacy drummers, Carmine Appice and, yeah, pretty awesome. And actually, I used to do a lot of drum festivals, where we do drum clinics, and it very often a very competitive kind of nature. And not always the most musical situations, but with this thing, because I guess it was based on John Bonham, and it was just 100% supportive of everyone. Was just really beautiful about it. And then we've all kept in touch. We all go and see we went to see Ginger Baker with a whole bunch of people, with Chad Smith and the drummer from King's X and Joe Franco, and so it's a really cool situation.
Moving on to kind of career lowlights, I guess it could be.
I got a lot of those. How much time do you have?
So have you ever had anything go wrong on stage, whether it's equipment fails or brain fails, that you can tell us about?
Well, aside from just the normal things breaking, I remember I was playing Madison Square Garden with Enrique, and we were playing a Christmas show. So it was like 10 of the top acts at the time, including Miley Cyrus and Pitbull and Maroon 5, I think, was there. And anyway, my drum tech had set my headphone amp up on a mic stand, and it got knocked over while I was playing, so I got disconnected from. Enrique's not playing with a lot of tracks. It's more like just I'm playing with a click, and sometimes there's some sound design kind of sounds, but mostly it's to be in sync with the video.
Yeah.
But it fell on the ground, so that was pretty bad. But I've always been obsessed about whenever I'm playing with tracks, which is most of the time actually, even with Steve Morse. I mean, not tracks, but I like to use a click track with some songs with him. But anyway, I've seen other people not have control of their monitor mix and 100% rely on a monitor guy to get their click back to them. And I've always been a control freak with that. So I'm like, look, I have my click going through my rack that's sitting right here.
That's exactly
so like worst case scenario is I still have the click and I'm going to stick with it. But in this case with Enrique, I did not, because my headphones got disconnected from the thing. So.
Oh man, yeah, I'm with you on that. I have the same thing. The way we have it set up is that I have control of my own mix, and if anyone else does anything, I've still got it. Yeah. I
remember once with Steve Morse, my snare drum stand broke, like the socket that holds it flat, and a local tech laid on his back and held the snare, for like one of the loudest songs with no earplugs, and I almost didn't want to play,
Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
wow.
But less and less kind of those problems as we go on, because I keep learning about my gear and trying to make it, bulletproof.
So, moving away from drums, with a couple of curveball questions for you now. So, first curveball question: what are your hobbies away from drums?
I'm a sports nut. I do Ironman triathlons and stuff like that. Not this year because they've all been shut down. So that's swimming, biking, running. But got tennis outside here, skiing, anything like that. Water skiing, sailing. I have lots of hobbies. Like I'm mediocre at hundreds of things.
That's cool.
Somebody asked me, you should get into golf. You'd be good at it. I'm like, no. I'm not adding another one. I need to get better at some of these first. So, and I'm a huge I'm huge into fitness. You know, like with the food, and hopefully not in an annoying way. I don't preach about any of it. Just fitness and yoga and mild weight training that works with the drums. You know, so and
Well, and that's the thing.
being fit. I like
Yeah.
fit and and having stamina. That's sort of my goal.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I've said this to a lot of people. It's kind of a bit of a not a trick question, but you know, I think for all of us, drums will have started as our hobby. You know, when we were
Hmm.
younger, drums are what we wanted to do, and then we're just really well lucky, but also we've worked hard for it. But you know, drums then become our living. But I think they can still be our hobby, can't they? You know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just another one of those things. I was really good at baseball and drums. Those the two things, and and you know, riding my bike, and it was one of those. It just fit into that picture.
Mm.
And then when I was 13, I think I made $50, $75 playing at a party, and then someone asked me to play at someone's wedding or bar mitzvah or something when I was 14, and that was like $300.
Mm.
And then the light bulb went off. Like, hmm. So I basically moved to Manhattan. I gave myself 3 years, like when I was right out of college. I went to music school as well, uh, and I was like, if I'm still playing in the wedding band I was in when I moved to New York, then I'm gonna go to law school or something, you know. But I'm gonna go for it like 200% in Manhattan, and I absolutely did. I was just laser focused,
Mm.
and I didn't have many responsibilities. I ate peanut butter a lot, and started to happen.
Mm.
So and then I got kids, and I'm like, oh man, I can't afford to stop music because I'm used to the certain income that I'm grateful enough to be getting paid by these artists, and but I'm missing their birthdays and Thanksgiving sometimes, and I'm not complaining to anybody,
Mm.
but I will say, um, while this pandemic situation is tough for everyone, and my heart goes out to everyone about it, the silver lining in it for my situation is being able to get to know my kids better.
Yeah.
And turns out they're really amazing people. So,
Awesome. Oh, that's
yeah.
great. And you talked about music school. That leads me nicely to this question. Actually, I'll slot
Mhm.
this one in here before doing the other curveball question. Um, when you first get a gig with a new artist, or you know, if you're doing a recording or whatever, how do you learn the material? Do you just listen and then you know you've got it, or do you listen and do you transcribe stuff? How does it work?
Yeah, I guess that depends. I guess depends on the material. Um, but in general, I like to internalize the music. But I also I would still consider myself a pretty good reader. I'm not sure how important reading is these days. I don't preach it to anybody. Um, but having studied young and learned to read, and then you know, I was playing in like a lot of big bands at University of Miami, things like that. So I really got my sight reading together then, and that's a muscle too. I gets kind of gets rusty, but I have to say, when I listen to a song, if it's like your basic pop song, which is mostly what I'm recording here or producing or whatever, but if I'm learning something, I'm listening to the song and I'm really trying to take it into me, you know, like into my soul, because I want to become part of that music as deeply as possible. But I'm also seeing the shapes of the notes go by as I hear it. I don't know if that works for you, but I it makes me able to learn it quicker. So sometimes I can do it like by listening to it once, just because that muscle's been developed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? On the other hand, I've met some people who were incredible readers, but as soon as they start reading, you can tell they're not listening anymore.
Mm.
So that's it. That's a huge difference. And then the best of the best of the best are the guys that can sight read, and but they still got 90% of the ears listening to the band or whatever situation they're playing in. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to
Yeah.
confuse people, but that's what I've noticed in all my years of
Yeah.
working. Like a guy be playing one way, and yeah, I was doing a session with a bass player, great bass player, and then we were working on another song, and as soon as he started looking at the music, I could tell he didn't realize that his bass was way ahead of my kick drum, and I'm like, yo, hey bro, don't forget about me, you know. So that's something that's yeah, it might be a dying art form, you know. I don't know.
No, I think it's. I personally think it's still really important to be able to learn, because otherwise, if you don't learn how to do it, then you know you're not able to do that work, are you? You know, if someone comes to you with some reading.
Yes, yes. However, some amazing musicians don't read anything, and they can't even tell you what chord they're playing on their guitar.
Absolutely.
And they're writing songs that have moved generations of people. So that's the other side of it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, and I only say that because I've seen a lot of musicians feel insecure about themselves because they don't read. And I don't think you should do that. No, I think if you don't read, you should still go in and go, well, you know, I've got other skills that I can bring to the table. Dennis Chambers doesn't read. Buddy Rich was not a great reader. And that's incredible to me. But I know some guys in Buddy Rich's band, and they were like, he'd listen to it with someone else playing drums, and then he would play. And he could learn it like that, you know, because so that's the other side of that story. If you're gonna do like Broadway stuff here, you better know how to read.
Yes.
And when I was doing a lot of TV commercials playing on them, they had a lot of weird edits because they have to edit a commercial down to 30 seconds or 60 seconds. So they would chop a beat or two out of phrases, and it would be very unnatural actually to listen to. But if you can read it, you get it first time, you know. So the readers ended up working then, but I don't see as much of that happening anymore. I mean, Broadway's happening, not this year, and hopefully it's coming back soon. But
Yeah.
anyway, yes, if it's better to be able to read, I would, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know, there's some amazing people. Yeah, they don't even know what note it is on their guitar or their bass.
Yeah, totally. That's great.
But their soul's connected to the music, though.
And yeah, and that's the most important thing, definitely. Cool. So just back to those curveball questions. So my second curveball question for you, Van. What's your favorite cookie?
Cookie?
Yep.
Oh, that's easy. Oatmeal raisins.
Oh, that was a really like quick, definite answer.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And would you dunk the oatmeal raisin cookie in
No.
any kind of beverage? No.
No. Wouldn't do that. I don't like crumbs in my beverages. Or yeah, that's probably the main reason why. I tried it. I tried it in my early years, you know, when I was just getting my cookie technique together, but
Excellent. This is one of those weird ones. Some people have an answer straight away. That's it. End of question. Other people, I've done like 20 minutes on that question. You know,
that would be my answer with the drummer, like favorite drummer thing.
Yeah.
Well, so
Cool. So on to my last question then. So if you could give just one bit of advice to people starting out learning the drums, what would that advice be?
I would say what I've learned, and again, I don't come from a preaching point of view. What I've learned is the only rule is there are no rules. And because rules very often, you know, they do this thing. What's enabled me to, I love almost every genre of music, and I'm grateful to be actually like working up in those, you know, Enrique's extreme pop or Latin pop, whatever you want to call that, Nena's pop rock, Steve Morse, eclectic rock. I don't even know how to describe that. I've just tried to keep an open mind to all music, and including programming, electronics. I don't judge music if there's no live drums on it. That's like but a lot of guys my age do. And it's cool if that's their taste and they just don't like it. But if you're in the music business and you're planning on morphing as the business changes, which is it changes faster and faster as time goes on, you know. I think it's important to embrace all those things, or you find yourself um, having to survive because if you want to make living in the music business, you have to make some money. And of course, you can teach. Of course, you can do stuff online, or you can do it in a lot of different ways. My thing is, I like to create music and be hired to work on records and put together tours and play those songs on tour, and being open-minded about everything, including playing with tracks, clicks, electronic music, live music, playing without a click, playing with plexiglass. It's a service industry. That's how I see it. So for me, it's all about Enrique's performance. And if I'm not thinking about his performance and watching him, then I'm not doing my job because he's running the bus. So it's not about my drum fills, or my drum sound is based on making his vocal sound good. So in any situation, long answer to your question, huh? But that's these are the people that are working like consistently. You know, you might get a gig for a period of time, and then um, but you know, there's other platforms too. A lot of people are becoming Instagram stars by having chops and doing their thing, and that's beautiful. It's a whole nother side of it too, where you don't necessarily have to serve another person. You got your own drum thing, and people are following you. So I see people doing well with that too in these times.
Van, thank you so much for spending your time with us here at DrumWise today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it, Tom.